The air in Kunar Province carried a kind of silence that made every soldier uneasy. Dust hung heavy above the narrow road as Captain Florent Groberg led his patrol through the valley. It was early morning, but already the Afghan sun pressed down on their helmets, and the smell of earth and concrete mixed with the faint metallic tang of sweat. Groberg kept his eyes moving, scanning rooftops, windows, alleys, any place that could hide a threat. He had walked in Afghanistan's streets many times before, but on that August morning in 2012, something gnawed at him deeper than usual. The mission seemed straightforward: escort a group of coalition leaders to a provincial governor's compound. These patrols were routine, but routine, in Afghanistan, was a word loaded with risk. Any corner could conceal an ambush, and the enemy had perfected the art of turning ordinary-looking streets into death traps. Groberg knew the stakes. He wasn't just responsible for his own life but for every soldier moving with him. The weight of leadership was invisible but crushing, and he carried it with every step. As they advanced, he noted the unusual quiet. Where were the children? Most days, kids would dart out of doorways, waving, shouting, sometimes asking for candy. But now, the streets were empty. Even the shopkeepers, who usually lingered in doorways, seemed to have vanished. Doors shut, windows dark. Groberg's gut twisted. Years of training and instinct screamed that something wasn't right. He slowed his pace, signaling subtly to his men with a raised hand. Their boots crunched on gravel as the patrol tightened its formation, weapons at the ready. Groberg's senses sharpened, the way they did when danger was near. His ears caught the faint rustle of fabric ahead. Two men appeared suddenly, walking toward them. They didn't look nervous. In fact, they looked determined. Too determined. Groberg's eyes locked onto one of them. The man's gait was stiff, his arm clutched awkwardly against his torso. His loose clothing bulged unnaturally at the chest and waist. In that instant, Groberg's mind put the pieces together faster than words could form: suicide vest. He didn't think. He didn't weigh options. He moved. Adrenaline surged as he lunged forward, closing the distance in seconds. He threw his body into the bomber, grabbing his vest and driving him backward with all his strength. The man resisted, eyes wild, teeth clenched, but Groberg forced him off balance, shoving him away from the formation. Then came the blast. A thunderous explosion ripped the air, a blinding flash swallowing the narrow street. The shockwave hit like a giant's fist, throwing men to the ground, shaking walls, shattering windows. Groberg felt searing heat and a jolt of agony in his leg as shrapnel tore through muscle. He hit the ground hard, ears ringing, vision swimming in smoke and dust. For a moment, the world was chaos: screams, groans, the acrid stench of explosives filling his lungs. Groberg tried to push himself up, his body trembling, blood soaking through his uniform. Pain shot through his leg, nearly knocking him unconscious. But he forced his eyes open. He had to know where his men were. Then it hit him. There had been two men. Two bombers. Through the haze, Groberg spotted the second insurgent. Disoriented by the first detonation, the man triggered his vest too soon, detonating before he reached the formation. The blast tore another hole in the street, but its impact was less devastating than it could have been. Groberg's quick action had forced the attack to unravel before the second bomber could reach the heart of the patrol. The cost was still terrible. 4 Americans lay dead, and others were wounded. Groberg's leg was mangled, blood pooling beneath him as medics rushed to his side. His ears still rang, and his head swam, but his thoughts weren't of himself. He searched the smoke, praying more of his soldiers were alive. He thought of the leaders he had sworn to protect, how close they had been to annihilation. Even as his vision blurred and the world tilted into darkness, one truth held steady: his decision to act had saved lives. He had run toward the danger, not away. And though the pain threatened to swallow him whole, Captain Florent Groberg knew in that moment that he had fulfilled his duty as a leader, to protect his men at any cost. 3 years later, the explosion in Kunar Province still echoed in Captain Florent Groberg's memory. Though he had survived, survival didn't feel like victory. He bore the physical scars, his leg reconstructed after 33 surgeries, every step a reminder of that August morning. Yet the heavier scars were the unseen ones, the faces of 4 men who never came home. It was November 12, 2015, when Florent found himself standing inside the East Room of the White House, a place that felt worlds away from dusty Afghan streets. The chandeliers above sparkled with light, polished floors reflected the glow, and rows of chairs were filled with uniformed service members, dignitaries, and families. The atmosphere was ceremonial, but for Florent, it carried the weight of memory. He knew why he was here, but he also knew who wasn't. He shifted slightly in his uniform, the medals and ribbons catching the light. His legs still ached as he stood, the phantom pain reminding him that even though his body had healed, the war had never truly left him. His thoughts drifted back to Kevin Griffin, Thomas Kennedy, Walter Gray, and Ragay Abdelfattah, the men who had died in the blasts that day. He whispered their names silently, like a prayer, as if calling them into the room with him. The room grew quiet as President Barack Obama entered, his expression solemn but respectful. The president approached the podium, glancing toward Florent with the recognition that this ceremony was about more than one man. He began to recount the events of August 8, 2012, how a young army captain had reacted with split-second courage, pushing a suicide bomber away from his patrol, absorbing the blast that could have killed dozens. Florent grabbed the bomber and pushed him away, the president said. Had he not acted so quickly, so selflessly, the explosion could have been catastrophic. As those words hung in the air, Florent's jaw tightened. To him, it wasn't selflessness or heroism, it was instinct, duty, the only choice a leader could make. He remembered the chaos, the fire, the screams. He remembered the silence after the blast, when he realized some of his brothers were gone. No medal could erase that. When the citation for the Medal of Honor was read aloud, time seemed to slow. An aide stepped forward holding the small blue ribbon with its star-shaped medallion. President Obama lifted it carefully and, with steady hands, placed it around Florent's neck. Cameras flashed, applause broke out, but Florent's eyes were lowered. He felt the medal's weight immediately, heavier than any piece of metal should have been. It was not just an award, it was a reminder of lives lost, a symbol he would carry forever. As the applause faded, Florent glanced at the families of the fallen. He felt his chest tighten. How could he ever explain that this honor wasn't his alone? How could he make them know that he wore it for their loved ones? Later, when a reporter asked him how it felt to receive the nation's highest military honor, his answer came without hesitation. This medal belongs to them, he said softly. I wear it for them. I live for them. Those words weren't scripted. They came from a place deep inside, where the memories of Kunar Province lived. He knew that he had been given a second chance at life when others had not. That meant he had to live differently, live in a way that honored their sacrifice. That day at the White House, under the brilliance of chandeliers and in front of the nation, Florent Groberg wasn't just a wounded soldier or a Medal of Honor recipient. He was a leader who had proven, in the most extreme test, what true leadership meant, running toward danger, protecting others, and carrying the memory of fallen comrades as part of his own soul. The medal shined brightly against his uniform, but for Florent, its true brilliance was unseen. It was in the courage of the men he served with, in the sacrifices of those who didn't return, and in the promise he made to keep their memory alive every day of his life. For Captain Florent Groberg, the Medal of Honor was not the end of his story. It was the beginning of a lifelong duty, one to remember, to honor, and to live not just for himself, but for the brothers he could never forget.